First Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 9. For I think that Yahweh had sent forth us, the apostles, last, as it were appointed to death. For we are made a spectacle unto the world, and to the angels, and to men. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shemi Shai. I want to give double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone that do rule well. Salutations to the men of the hopeful and sincere elect. This is your brother Makazar from a Trinidad camp. Just want to do all the edification for the elect's sake. And the name of this lesson would be Righteous Role Models. And that's what we all supposed to be. All right? We all supposed to be righteous role models. All right? Because whether we like it or not, we are all role models one to one another. All right? The aged to the young to the age, even as the scripture say, the aged woman, teach the younger woman. So, even to our own children, we are role models. All right. And just like children, they soak up everything they see and hear. And it's the same thing coming into this truth. When you come into this truth, you come into this truth as a babe. So you look to the elder brothers, as an example how to conduct yourself, what to say, and for instructions in like concerning reading, how to study, basically how to care about yourself. All right, so we are all role models one to another. So therefore, as the scripture said, you are not your own. When we are about our daily lives, we have to always remember, hey, guess what? I'm not living for myself. So there's this brother that looking at me. So let me conduct myself in a mannerly order that this brother would be edified, and edified in the proper way. All right, not misled. All right. Sometimes, even the elder brothers could be, inspired by the younger brothers. You say, this young brother, I remember when I was young like that, the fire he have, the energy he have, what, let me try to get back into that spirit. All right, the same thing with the young brother. The young brother look at the old brother and say, you know what, I want to have the understanding and the knowledge like this old brother have. So let me do more studying. Let me pray more. Let me fast more. This brother is he always talking about health. So let me try to gain that health. So you always inspire one another. All right, whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally. All right, you might be just the way you handle situations, and a brother might be there, you wouldn't even know that brother there, and that brother might see you from a distance and see you handle a situation and say, hey, you know what, this brother, I want to be just like this brother always in character. All right, he not just a Hebrew Israelite when other act him wrong. He's a Hebrew Israelite at all times. So let me be like this brother. So we have to keep that in mind. Whether we young or whether we old, we are all role models one to one another. So therefore, we have to act as though we responsible, which we are responsible. We are responsible for one another. So we have to keep that in mind always. All right. This is the book of Philippians chapter 3 and verse 15. Go to verse 16. It says, nevertheless, whereto we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule. Let us mind the same thing. So we all have to mind the same thing. It says, brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as ye have of us for an example. So mark them, just like how, I walk, as Paul was saying, just like how I walk and how the other brothers walk. You see them walk, as the scripture said, as he just said, he said, basically to walk in the same rule. All right. Hey, mind the same things. Is you see our brother that his mind on the commandments of the Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai, he thinks about what he wears, what he eats, the way he dress. All right, how when he's drinking with the Akim, he doesn't drink so that he lose his composure. All right, he tries to always maintain order and stability and control. All right, control of oneself is a hell of a thing. This control of yourself is a hell of a thing. All right? And we always have to maintain control, especially of ourselves. All right? So we have to be followers of one another in righteousness. As the scripture says, be followers of me as I am followers of Mashiach. All right? So just like Yahushua was, Hebrews chapter 3 says, basically take heed to Yahushua the high priest. So just like how Yahushua lived, we have to live. We have to walk after that same rule. For an example, all right, I want to look up real quick in Philippians. I want to look up rule. When you look up the word rule, it says a rod or straight piece of rounded wood to which anything is fastened to keep it straight. Then Galatians 4 said that we all under schoolmasters. The laws is what keeps us straight. So if we have the same rule, means that we have the same fear in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. We follow after the same doctrine. The doctrine, the gospel is what keeps us straight. So walk after the same rule. Walk in that same gospel, that same path you see from the apostles all the way down. You walk in that same path. The things you hear the apostles say, the things you see the apostles teach, all right? The apostles might say, something like all right, Akim, stop wearing this when you come to the camp. All right, you might say, well, that not unlawful. So why the apostles said, hey, if the apostles say they have their reasons, and you might not see the reason now, you might see the reason down the road. All right. So for now, just walk after the same rule. You could trust these men. These men been raised in the scriptures, in the gospel, in the doctrine of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and so far they have been leading us on the straight path. So there's no reason to not put all your trust and faith in them. So walk after that same manner. All right? Walk after that same manner. Because they are our role models. Just like we, as men that over 6 months in the truth, are role models to men that now coming in. All right? We all are role models one to another because we all convict, we all convince, we all encourage. All right? We all give one another encouragement to continue. All right? So we all responsible for one another. All right? It says what? Use for various purposes a measuring rod, a rule, a carpenter's line, or measuring tape. All right? The scriptures talk about the measure of a man. So basically, you have to walk in that same straight pattern, that same straight line, walk in the straight path. All right? Don't deviate. All right? Boom. Let's go into verse 17 and look up the word ensample. It says the mark of a stroke or blow, a print. All right? So we all make impacts. We all make impacts in this truth. So when you see brothers making positive impacts, you follow them. The scripture says, mark them that cause basically confusions, basically contradicting the gospel, and avoid them. All right? So when you see brothers making positive impacts, you follow after them. And not only just follow, but also add to the ministry. Because they added to the ministry. So you ain't coming here just to learn how to follow. You're learning how to lead. You are learning how to lead because guess what? The men that are coming in behind you looking to you for leadership qualities. So therefore, you're responsible for them to be their role model. All right? To mold them to the truth. To mold them to be acceptable men of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. All right? Because they're looking at us. Even the older men looking at the younger men looking at the older men. So we all encourage each other. We all encourage each other. Just like when you have children, you know you're responsible for your children. You can't say, well, oh, I'm not a good role model. Nah, you are a role model by default. You are a role model by default simply because they are younger men than you. So therefore, if you know you have bad qualities, you can't say, well, this is how I am, I can't change it. Yes, you can't change it. Stop being a nigger and change whatever bad qualities you have, because you're not responsible for yourself only. You're responsible for other men, for younger men. You're responsible for other men. All right? Sometimes you might be catching hell. You might be catching hell and you want to just cry, you want to just sigh, and you want to just fall weak. But then you remember, hey, you know what? It have men that are looking at me. And these men will be going through their trials and tribulations and their ups and downs also. So guess what? When I'm weak, let me be strong for those brothers, so that when they're weak, they could see that, hey, it's possible. It's possible to be strong even when you're weak. So that when they're weak, they could be strong and strengthen other men. That is why the Lord told Peter, when thou art converted, strengthen your brothers. Strengthen your brothers. When you come back to your right senses, come strengthen your brothers. Because we always, at all times, responsible for one another. We are role models. We are righteous role models one to another. And we can't escape it. We can't escape it. All right. This is 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. It says, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example to the believers. Be thou an example to the believers. We are examples to them. Righteous role models. We are righteous role models to the believers. All right? When you're to the highways, and you preaching, sometimes, there might be a potential member of the elect just passing by, and they might just hear you, and they might say, you know what, hey, I love what these men doing. But then if this same potential member of the elect, he pass another time and see you when you're not doing the works, carrying about in an outlandish way, and he might look at you like, like, this brother is a hypocrite. This brother not caring about himself the way that he preach. All right? So you have to remember that, hey, guess what? At all times, as the first scripture said, we are made a spectacle unto men, unto angels, unto the world. All right? We are a spectacle. As the scripture says, unknown but yet well known. All right? They know us. They know us. When we out there, they know us. They could recognize you. Don't think just because you have on the garments, you incognito mode. No, you're not. The spotlight is now upon you. So therefore, you have to carry about yourself in a manner that all men would be that would be acceptable to all men in righteousness. Because, and the next scripture I'm gonna read, it speak about that, because guess what? There are some men that are gonna hate you. They're gonna hate you whether you're doing good or bad. All right? But the thing is, as the scripture says, let none of you suffer as a thief. That is, if they speak evil of you, let them speak evil, but let none of you suffer for wickedness, suffer for righteousness. All right? Suffer for righteousness. All right? It says what? I'll read it over. It says, let no man, 1 Timothy 4 and 12, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example to the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. All right, let's look up some of the words there. So it's 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. It says, let no man despise. Look up the word despise. It said to contemn, despise, disdain, think little of nothing. So don't let men, when they see you, despite they might hate you, let it be because, as the scripture says, they envy Yahweh. Let it be because of envy, not because you making the ministry to be blamed. All right? It says in word, which is, go back to your speech. All right? Conversation. We look up conversation. It says manner of life, conduct, behavior, or deportment. So your manner of life. Your manner of life is how you live every day. And every day, 365 days of the year, you are a Hebrew Israelite. So whatever manner of life, you have to be an example for them every day of your life. In your manner of life and your conduct. whether you have on your garment or not, whether the camera is on or not. You have to be a righteous role model, because that is where you are. It's just like when these Miss Universe. From the time you win Miss Universe, guess what? Your life don't belong to you. You have to be a role model to the world. All right? And if you dishonor that crown or dishonor that title, then the crown be taken from you. So you have to live like that. You have to live like guess what? Anybody could recognize you at any point. So stay in character. Stay in character at all time. All right? It says in charity, which the word charity, agape, which is affection, goodwill, love, benevolence. So brotherly love. So show brotherly love. Teach how to love one another. The scripture said, you shall know my disciples for the love they have one for another. So be now an example to the younger brothers by showing love, showing charity, showing them how to love, and they would put away those nigger ways where they could actually take the shirt off their back to help another brother. All right? Spirit, it says, well, basically the same spirit, the same as the spirit. It says in C2, it says the spirit, that is the vital principle by which the body is animated. They say the rational spirit. It says a spirit example, a simple essence. Boom, boom, boom. Here it says 4a. It says efficient source of any power, affection, emotion, desire. All right. So basically, your spirit is that zeal that within you. That zeal that within you, that love that you have toward, that fervent love you have towards Yahweh Shemi Shai. Show the Archeum that so that they could grow and be that way. And guess what? Even as I said before, that they bring more to the table so that they could actually add to your spirit. All right? And think of how beautiful camp it would be if all brothers could actually resonate off of each other, where they see one another and want to grow, to be like and go beyond each other. It's like you competing righteously. You just want to be the best part of yourself, as the scripture said, covered spiritual gifts. Covered spiritual gifts. All right? This is 2nd Maccabees, chapter 6 and verse 24. Here's an example of a guy that chose rather to be a role model than a sellout. All right, he's talking about the priests when they told him to eat, if he eat pork in the sight of all the people, they will allow him to live. But then the guards, they were good with him, so they said, you know what, we will give you lamb to eat, but in front of the people, make it known as though you're eating pig. And he was like, nah, I ain't doing that. All right? This is 2nd Maccabees chapter 6 and 24. It says, for it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble. It says, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being fourscore years old and 10, were now gone to a strange religion. So guess what? If you carry about yourself in public in a strange way, men gonna watch you funny. They're gonna watch you funny. All right? And you don't have the liberty to carry about yourself in an outlandish way. It says, and so they through my hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, that I get a stain to my old age and make it abominable. It says, for though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet I should not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. So guess what? He gonna eat something lawful because they was gonna give him lamb to eat. But guess what? He gonna cause others to stumble and fall. And there is where men's blood will be upon his hand. And you don't want men's blood to be upon his hand. As Paul said, no, I am free from all men's blood. Because why? Because Paul, he kept the faith, not only by word, but also by action. The scriptures say, love not in words only, but in deed and in truth. All right? Love in deed and in truth. And therefore, if you love in deed and in truth, then your manner of life every day will be that as becometh a righteous man. whether you being seen or you unseen, and that is when it's counted for righteousness. Now, when you could be judged righteous in front of men, but guess what? When you're doing righteousness, when nobody could see that you're doing righteousness, it's like when the scriptures say when you give it alms, don't let your right hand know your left hand do it. All right, you're giving it secretly. You're doing good secretly. That the Lord that is sick in secret will reward you openly. So therefore, when your manner of life is even in secret is righteous, then guess what? How much would your manner of life in the open be righteous? You'll be even more a righteous role model. All right, don't just hey, and I mentioned, like, the sisters earlier on, like there's these shalom sisters that before everybody they shalom, but inside they deceitful and wicked as hell. All right, don't be like a shalom sister. Be righteous inside and outside. Don't be whited sepulchres. All right, don't be whited sepulchres. Don't be white outside and you're wicked as hell inside. It's verse 27, it says, wherefore now manfully, it says, changing this life, I will show myself such as one as age required, and leave a notable example. Here it goes again, example. Basically saying, hey, I'm going to be a role model. In death, I'm going to be a role model. Leave a notable example to such as be young, to be willing to die courageously for the honorable and holy laws. He leaving examples for the young. He been examples and role models for the young. All right. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment, and they that led him, changing the good will they had bear him a little before into hatred, because the foresaid speech proceeded as they thought were as it taught from a desperate mind. It says, but when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto Yahweh that hath the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in body by being beaten, but in soul am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him. So if you fear Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, you will in no doubt be a righteous role model to the younger men and even to the older men. It says, and thus this man died, leaving his death for an example. Here we go again with example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue. Now remember that word virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. All right. So the righteous and the unrighteous can see. The righteous and the unrighteous can see. All right. So you not only leave an example to the young men, you leave an example to the older men. So you have to be a role model for everybody. 1/3 and 2/3. All right. And you'll see why I said even the 2/3. This is 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 12. Verse 1 John. This is 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 12. After that verse 11, it says, dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshy lusts which war against the soul, having your conversations, your manner of life, honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, so they're going to speak evil of you, whether you good or whether you bad. All right. But let none of you suffer as a thief. When they speak evil against you as evildoers, that they may by your good works, which they shall behold, because they beholding, they're always looking at you, they're always listening. All right. Glorify Yahweh Hashem Yahushai in the day of visitation. So they're gonna glorify the Lord, because when they see you growing up, they're gonna say, hey, this man, he was always a prophet of the Lord, he was always an elect. Look, the Lord taking him up. We should have followed after he said. They're gonna glorify the Lord. Because why? Because they saw your manner of life. And it's up to them to take that inspiration to walk on that straight path. As the scripture say, walk after the same rule in the straight path, or that narrow straight path. Is up to them. But the goal is to walk on that straight path always. All right, to be that man of man always, to be always in character. All right, this is the final precept here. This is Philippians 4:8. It says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, you see all these qualities in men, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. So replace whatsoever things and put it as whatsoever man. All right, so it's like, finally, brethren, whatsoever man you see true, whatsoever man you see honest, whatsoever man you see just, whatsoever man you see pure, whatsoever man you see lovely, whatsoever man you hear of good report. You hear good report of this man. It says, if there be any virtue, just like, Eliezer left back for a virtue. All right, if there be any praise, think on these things. So if you see this man walking, as a walking personification of the scripture, means that he trying his best to walk after righteousness, to keep the holy commandments and faith in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Hey, you follow after that man. Be followers of that man, as even as Paul was followers of Yahushai. All right, so you have to remember, as the scripture said, be not the understudy of a fool. So you have to look at who you're following and follow after that righteous man. And also the men that in higher positions, you remember that you also are a role model for the younger men. All right, so with that, I hope it was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. I want to give double honors to the apostles of great mercy and do rule well. Salutations to the men of the Hopeland Saints, say elect. This is your brother Makazar from the Trinidad camp saying shalom and stay strong. Shalom.